We are once again Six Rings and Football Things, Cadlick's very crucial
Oh yeah.
clashes edition. 3-10 Patriots getting set to host the 8-5 Kansas City Chiefs, Gillette Stadium, Sunday, 1 p.m. If you recall, this was originally a Monday Night Football affair that was flexed, and that's where I want to start, Mike Cadlick, weei.com. Do you
Let's do
think
it.
now, given everything that's happened over the last week or so, with Bailey Zappe getting a win for the Patriots, injecting a little bit of life into this lifeless season in New England, and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid having a supermarket aisle style temper tantrum at the end of their most recent loss due to the officiating. Do you think there's any seller's remorse from
hmm
the TV networks and the National Football League that maybe they should have kept this game on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I do. I actually think that, looking at this game, like you said, with the Kadarius Toney offsides type thing and Mahomes throwing a fit, which really felt like the first time ever that I've seen him be that, overzealous, if you will. Like he just and he's a guy who doesn't really do that. He's always been pretty buttoned up, like, takes the blame on himself and doesn't really say too much. And there's never really been a knock on him. I've never really understood people that don't like Patrick Mahomes. And so to see him, do that was interesting, and it was telling the kind of stress and, pressure that he's gone under this season with the Chiefs not being that good. But that's a storyline that you could sell on Monday Night Football. Same with Taylor
Absolutely.
Swift probably coming to Gillette. The Patriots coming off a win. You have the Belichick rumors that come out this week, which we'll get to. Bailey Zappi plays well. And I look at the game they replaced it with, the Eagles and the Seahawks. The Eagles are coming off 2 straight losses, and the Seahawks have lost like 5 of their last 6 or something. So, I mean, if you were replacing it with, call it, I don't know, 49ers versus Dolphins, you could sell Shanahan and McDaniels and something
Yep.
like that, or the Ravens or whatever. Like, yeah, the Eagles are, the defending NFC champs and whatever, but I don't know. I think they would rather have Patriots Chiefs right now, is my point. I think that's the way to sell it. And especially with Taylor Swift and that whole thing, like, yeah, this is a good game this weekend, even if the Patriots are 3-10.
Seahawks, Eagles. One might say that game's for the birds.
Haha.
And just
Deadline
touching
heart.
on your, not really, it's a dad line, but whatever. I'm
Yeah,
a dad.
fair. Deadline.
Um, the Patrick Mahomes thing. I don't know if I've shared my latest Andy Hardo football cliche quote thing with you.
Okay.
Um, but I've decided this season, watching what's happened to the Patriots and Bill Belichick and Mac Jones and everything, I've come up with a phrase that losing is undefeated. And I
Sure.
think my latest example of losing being undefeated is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
You're right. He's never really done any of this. And you know why? Because he's never really been 8-5, staring down a road playoff game, having lost 2 in a row, having lost 4 of 6. Like, he hasn't really had to deal with this painful reality, which continues in my mind the narrative of sort of he's the Tom Brady of this generation, where
Yeah.
now his team is taking advantage of him. He doesn't have the weapons around him. They expect him to just do it all, and he pretty much has. Like,
Sure.
that's the funny thing. When I started to go, so you watch the Chiefs from afar, they're on primetime games and all that, and you have narratives and ideas in your head. And then I go to prepare for this and this week, and it's like you look at the stats and they're like, well, they have a top 10 offense and
Mhm.
top 10 defense. And on paper, they're one of the best teams in football. But we hold Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs to such a high standard. And I think he holds himself to the high standard that when they lose, when there's frustration, it boils over. He never has to
Right.
act like this. So this is for relative to his career, this is basically tough times for
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
And that's again
Um,
where I like that you kind of related to Brady and the Patriots. And I hate trying to compare people to Brady, but I do think Mahomes is the closest thing, especially in this generation. And you're right, like top 10 offense, top 10 defense. That's the same thing Brady had here basically every single year. And even when shit hit the fan a little bit, it's like, oh, is he mad? Is he upset? Like, they're doing him dirty, and they were still at worst like the 2 or the 3 seed in the AFC playoffs.
right. Now, the weird part is he crossed a line for me. Tom Brady would bitch on the field about the officials, and then he would get to the post-game podium, and he wouldn't. And
Sure.
the closest I remember is a game at Gillette. I believe it was at Gillette when he said, Mom always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So good night, guys. I'm going home to see my
Yeah,
family.
right.
So, which is smart. Do that. Be smarter. Don't embarrass yourself the way I do think. And I like Patrick Mahomes. I'm with you. I've
Yep.
never understood Patriot Nation. Actually, I do understand it. The
It's
people
a
in Patriot
rivalry.
Nation that,
Yeah.
well, and they're fearful that they bitch that people compare him to Brady and that the dynasty was anointed too soon. But the reason I think they bitch is because deep down in places they don't talk about at parties, they're worried that the Chiefs and Mahomes could do special things in the coming years that could
100%.
challenge the Patriot. So, but I was not impressed with Patrick Mahomes, and I know he kind of backtracked and apologized and said he
Mhm.
shouldn't have said, especially his comments to Josh Allen, which I
Yeah,
thought were the worst part of it. Like,
agreed.
that's a so you're telling Josh Allen basically you didn't beat us, the officials beat us. Like,
Right.
be a man, be sportsmanlike, and say, "Wow, we play some really interesting games. I hope we see you again down the
Well,
line," or
that's what
something.
Travis Kelce did. A Travis Kelce clip came out of it with him and Allen, and I thought Kelce handled it perfectly. Like Josh said, that was the greatest play ever, and Kelce was like, "Yeah, the greatest that never counted." And he was like, "Stay healthy,
Right.
like see you again, like whatever." Just
And,
again,
and
it's
that's
after the
why I
fact,
was
right?
rooting. Honestly, that's why I was rooting for the Bill. I like watching these two teams play, like
Oh
everybody else
yeah,
does, and the
it's the
Bills
best
are
new
on.
rivalry like in
Yes,
the NFL lately for sure.
absolutely. And the Bills are on life support for the playoffs. So I wanted them to win to open up the opportunity that they could meet again in the
Right.
postseason with important stuff on the line. Um, but certainly tough times for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I put those in quotes because, is he as Tom Brady once said, is he the most miserable 8-win quarterback in the National Football League right now?
Right.
Mac Jones would kill for these tough times right now, 8
Yeah,
wins and bitching
seriously.
about a ref. Um, so before we get into this, what are your general feelings about the Chiefs? Like, are they, because I will forever, until they prove otherwise, I think the Chiefs are a Super Bowl contender. I don't want to bet
Mhm.
against them. I don't want my team having to face them in the playoffs because we said it for years, we lived it for years. Don't bet against Brady and Belichick. Well, I don't think you bet against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid with the season on the line. So, but what are your sort of big picture feelings on what the Chiefs could do in this playoff run?
Big picture, I think I'm with you as far as, never bet against them. It's Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the sport. Even when he's down, no Tyreek Hill and Kelsey having, I don't want to even say Kelsey's having an off year, but like their offense as a whole isn't playing great. I still have a hard time betting against them every single week when I do, I run through the games and think about who like I'm going to pick or whatever. I'm always on the Chiefs because it's just, I can't sit here and pick against Patrick Mahomes. I think overall, I mean, their defense is also nasty. Like when Mahomes started there, first couple years of his career, their defenses weren't great, but him and Hill and Kelsey and the who was their OC, the Eric Bieniemy, like they would just overcome those bad defenses. And now the defense is stacked. Chris Jones is the best defensive lineman in football. Nick Bolton is one of the better linebackers. They have some solid guys in the secondary. So like overall, they play more balanced football, and I think that actually like bodes well for them, in a playoff run. And I think that you saw that last year when they went and won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I like the Chiefs. I get that they're going through hard times. I think it's again, it does remind me of those Patriots teams where they really did put it all on Brady and they didn't have the weapons. Like, and I even look at Kadarius Toney. Like, Toney can be a good football player if he just stays out of his own way. And he can't seem to stay out of his own way. And that's the struggle. Like Mahomes will throw it. He'll dust a cornerback and be wide open. And Mahomes will drop it in his belly and he'll drop it. And it's like, that was a good play by the wide receiver. Just make the damn play. And that's why Mahomes is probably so frustrated. So I'm with you. I can't, again, I said it 3 or 4 times now, but I can't bet against them. And so like I think ultimately they'll end up figuring it out and probably end up in the AFC Championship game, if not the Super Bowl.
And the funny thing was, a few weeks ago, before all this losing started to pile up over the last month and a half, Mahomes was borderline giddy, I thought, because he kept saying, when we hit our stride on offense,
Yeah.
we're going to be awesome because I've never had a defense like this. Like, this defense is
Right.
ridiculous. And you're right. It's front to back. We all know Chris Jones, but those two corners, including one that could have been a Patriot, OJ McDuffie, and Snead, are playing at a really high level. Like, they're a good defensive football team. I think Spagnuolo is a good defensive coordinator that the
He's very
Patriots
good.
have
Yep.
seen over the years. Um, But and I think offensively, one of the things that I think is a difference maker for them is Isaiah Pacheco, or as
Oh
I
yeah.
say down my way in the New Bedford area, it's Pacheco, but we'll call him Isaiah Pacheco because that's how he wants it pronounced. Because universally as a world, we may have all never been more wrong than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. When he was drafted in the first round, everybody thought, oh my God, top 5 fantasy pick. He's the perfect
Yep.
fit for that offense. He's going to rewrite the record. And he stinks. He's like this chubby little non-contributor with an ugly football helmet on. Like
Yeah,
there's
literally. He
nothing
was
to like.
good for like a week and a half his rookie year, and then it just
Right.
fell off. Yeah.
And I think there's a big drop off from Pacheco and what he brings to that offense to try to balance it out and add another layer of contributions. So and he's missed time this week. He missed practice on
Mhm.
Wednesday. I think he's got a
Yep.
shoulder injury that's been hampering him. I think that's a big difference for them, not necessarily for this week, but to get him in January on the football field, I think that could be
Yeah,
a
I agree.
difference maker. So, okay, from Patriots perspective, we've talked a lot about the Chiefs here. From a Patriots perspective, you sat down with Tom Curran
I did.
elsewhere on the Six Rings and Football Things podcast feed earlier in the week for our little beat writer chat. And it was a timely discussion because Tom Curran has been local, national, maybe even international news because he said multiple times this week, including on WEEI, but also on NBC Sports Boston, that conversations he's had, the decision was made to move on from Bill Belichick after the loss to the Colts in Germany on that international stage. Now, Tom is kind of, I don't want to say backtracked, but
Mhm.
he's left a door ajar for conditions on the ground to change and
Yep.
people's minds to change. I know Pat McAfee sort of picked up and ran with it because Pat McAfee was put in the spotlight for ambushing Robert Kraft
Yeah.
on game day, which I didn't really think was that much of an ambush. But
Me either.
what do you make of this uptick? Thanks mostly to Tom Curran, but also
Mhm.
thanks in part to Pat McAfee. This uptick of we're playing out the string here on Bill Belichick. He indeed has 4 games left before he is the former coach of the New England Patriots. Do you think that's accurate? Do you think that should be accurate? What's your assessment of this current vibe?
Yeah. Haha. Current. Tom
See
Curran.
what I did there? I'm a
Haha. Yeah.
professional. I'm a
And
freak.
we're
I don't
so
look
good.
like a professional, but I'm a
Yeah.
professional.
No, we're good at this, Andy. No, so I mean, again, there's a lot of like, people on social media trying to say like Karin's just making things up and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think those people don't know what they're talking about. I think Tom Curran has high quality intel on this Patriots team, and what he heard after the Germany game is accurate. And so there's people out there that are also saying like, well, why did he wait till now and why did he do that? And I'm pretty sure, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure he's, kind of dropped these breadcrumbs over the course of the last couple of weeks, and nobody really picked up on it until
Right.
he went on early edition and was straight up asked by Trendy the other day, "Hey, what's the deal?" And he said it. And so,
I think just to clarify, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
I
you're
think
good.
the actual question by Trenny was like, can he save his job if he won 4 in a row?
Right.
Would that change things? And Tom's answer was basically, well, from what I've been told, the conversations I had, the decision was made.
Exactly. And so I buy that, and I don't think for Tom to, sit there and say, well, minds can change. I don't think that's backtracking. I think that's just the reality of the situation. I think after Germany, it was a train wreck and they had lost on an international stage, and the Crafts were pissed, and rightfully so. Like, what they built, this baby, was deteriorating right in front of them. And so whether that was them making a rash decision or whether, them thinking, you know what, it's over, and, it ends up coming out and someone tells Tom, and then that's the case, and then they change their mind. I don't think Tom would be wrong in that. And so, do I think that that is true? I do. Do I think he has the ability to save his job? I don't know. Like, again, with this coming out with the McAfee thing, and I don't think McAfee had intel. I think he was just kind of doing his Pat McAfee yapping, and I don't think he ambushed him either. But I just think that he was being truthful in that. I don't envy what might have to happen with this team moving forward, and Kraft's not going to answer that. But I think it's telling that after that, and after this current report has kind of taken on a life of its own over the last couple days, I think it's telling that we haven't heard anything else. Like, the Crafts could come out in theory and tell somebody else or say it on their own and say, no, none of this is true. We're sticking by Bill Belichick. And they haven't. They've kept their mouth shut. Nobody's said anything. They're letting it fester because I think they want it out there, and I think they know. And they're kind of putting it out there and kind of getting a feel for the fan base to see what they think. And the time has come, and I don't know if their decision's completely made up. I mean, they're still going to have to go through the last couple of weeks and see it, have a conversation, what have you. But I think they're leaning towards the direction of Bill Belichick is no longer going to be the head coach of this team.
So I actually don't think it's, I mean, I know people are pushing back or like this, timing wise, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we've all gone through this. Or not every single fan, because not every fan has reached the point where they're ready to move on from Bill. But the majority of Patriots fans, as the poll I did on Twitter told me, at least my followers, like the majority of Patriots fans, 50+% of Patriots fans want to move on from Bill after the season. So at some point, you reached that point. I don't know whether it was week 1, week 5, week 10, where that last year when they hired Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, somewhere along the line, you were like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm done here. I want him gone. So Robert and Jonathan Kraft are just human beings. Like, they're really successful, rich human beings who are in key positions of power, but they're just human beings like the rest of us. And they make decisions at some point based on the information, based on emotion. Like maybe there was some emotion in whatever. So why is it surprising that after the Colts game, they might say, we're done. Like, I've decided he's got to go. We'll let it play out. We're going to be respectful. We're not firing him mid-season, but he's got to go. We've reached the end of this relationship. So the flip side of that is, I also think Tom Curran's smart in that, I believe that he talked to somebody or people maybe that were indicative of it's time. We've reached the end of this road. But he also knows that was the middle of the season. Time can heal all wounds. Like, give yourself a little bit, because he knows it's a massive decision. It's an earth-shaking decision within the walls of Patriot Nation. Like, they're going to move on from Bill Belichick. It was earth-shaking when they moved on from Tom Brady. This is going to shake the earth again. I might want to just leave a caveat. And it's funny because I remember probably 20 years ago, whenever it was, Chris Mortensen, legendary ESPN guy. Forget Deflategate. I'm not bringing up Deflategate. Let's not go there.
That's where I thought you were going at first until you said 20 years ago.
He went on SportsCenter or Game Day or whatever and said the Minnesota Vikings are going to fire Dennis Green after today's game unless for some reason they change their mind. Like, he did the same thing, like even more weirdly, like the day of. I want to say it was the final game, and it was like Black Monday's coming. He's getting canned. But even Chris Mortensen, who I'm sure had good sources, gave himself the out, like, unless they change their mind kind of thing. So it happens, like, because you're talking about massive decisions that do change people's lives, and there's people affected. So I think Tom Curran's right. I think Bill Belichick's done at the end of the season. I think I give him. Robert Kraft made it quite clear that was a big game for he and his team in Germany on an international stage that he'd put a lot of work into. He had talked to the fans at the house, Patriots house over there, and all that stuff. Like, so it doesn't surprise me that and his guy, if we believe him and reports, his guy Mac Jones threw what I believe is the worst pass I've ever seen on an NFL field. So I could see that being a breaking point. Like, the straw that broke the straw that broke Robert Kraft's back was that throw, and we all saw the poofy coat meme thing with him hanging his head
on Twitter.
So like, okay, it all kind of makes sense to me. All of it makes sense. It can all be true and all be right. And so, okay, so Bill Belichick probably going to be done at the end of the year, but he's not done. He's got 4 games to go. I wrote a column on weei.com that if indeed this is the final 4 games, well, you got 2 home games left. This is one of them. It's against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like, enjoy this, Patriot Nation. You kind of got robbed of your Tom Brady time because you weren't sure he was leaving. I think most of you thought, nah, he'll never do it. He's just jerking us around with that Hulu video coming in or out of Gillette Stadium, like that whole thing. No. I think fans should treat this as, if you're in Gillette Stadium Sunday at 1, you're seeing Bill Belichick for the last time if you're not going to be there for the Jets game. So I'm not telling people to cheer, boo, don't boo, they suck, whatever, but Just treat it like you're watching history and finality and closure and Bill Belichick. That's
Yeah,
all
take it in. Take it in.
Yeah,
Don't regret not thinking to yourself while you're there, you know.
right. Don't be stubborn and be pissy about the 3-win team. Maybe remember that just look up and there's 6 banners because of
Right.
Belichick and Brady and all the good times that came to Gillette, even if you get your ass whooped.
Yep.
Because getting into this game now,
They
Cadlick's
might.
crucial clashes, I find this game interesting because one
Yeah.
part of me says that the Chiefs are ripe for the picking, that the way the defense is playing for New England, maybe you can frustrate Mahomes, take away Kelsey, and be in this ball game. The other side of me says, boy, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes seemed pissed off. And I learned over the years when Belichick and Brady were pissed off, they usually took it out on the opposition and whooped some ass. So let's get into the clashes that will decide whether the Patriots shock the world or get their ass whooped at
All
home
right.
at Gillette Stadium.
Let's do it. Number 1. I'm starting with the Patriots offensive line versus the Chiefs pass rush / defensive front, because last week, probably the main reason why the Patriots were so successful was because their offensive line bounced back, even against a pretty good front in the Steelers and TJ Watt. They kept Zappe upright. He was only sacked twice. And I think that's a little bit has to do with him as well. Like he seemed to feel the pocket and move around better than we've seen Mac Jones do so all year. But Mike Onwenu played much better. He really bounced back after a tough showing against the Chargers. So now you got to go do it again against the Chiefs defensive front that is pretty nasty. I mean, George Karlaftis, I think, is their leading sack. The Chiefs are top 5 in sacks this season with 42. 9 of them are from Karlaftis, and then 7.5 are from Chris Jones, who is, like I said earlier, best defensive tackle in football. I read a PFF article yesterday, like a top 50 free agents heading into next season, and Chris Jones was number 1. Like when I said it earlier that the Chiefs are, a dominant football team, like it's because of their defense this year. Their defense is unbelievable, and the offense is they're not riding along. Like it's still Patrick Mahomes, which we'll get to, but that defense is awesome. So I think the key for the Patriots to, continue to have the success they had last week is keeping Zappe upright and getting rid of that dominant defensive front that the Chiefs have. And so can Onwenu bounce back? Can Trent Brown continue to, Trent's been, as much as we've gone and kind of dissected what Trent has been this year and sitting in and sitting out and posting things on Instagram and saying things, like overall, he's not wrong in saying that he's probably been their best offensive player. So can he help out in kind of, I guess, not letting that defensive front get after Zappe? Looking at all that in the trenches this week.
Yeah, so I think, we've talked all year about the offensive line, and they've kind of ebbed and flowed, and when they've really sucked, the offense has sucked, and when they've been competitive, the offense has been competitive, and the ground game has been better over the last month plus, and Ezekiel Elliott stepped up and everything that went into that. But I thought last week really, and I don't know how impactful Ezekiel Elliott's knee to the face of TJ Watt was I think it was the first play of the game.
Yeah.
And the whole subsequent Watt was in concussion protocol a day later. He put on the black face shield. He's doing smelling salts. Like that was Tua like in the way that was handled.
100%.
It's different because he's not a quarterback, but that was Tua like in the way that was handled. So I don't know how much that helped Mike Onwenu bounce back, because it was like back-to-back weeks. Don't send this film of Khalil Mack because you don't measure up to one of the game's best pass rushers. Oh, send this film of TJ Watt because you do measure up against one of the game's best pass rushers, like defensive player of the year kind of guys. And I did want to touch on, we probably should have touched on it before the clashes, but you kind of alluded to it. The Trent Brown Instagram post after Malik Cunningham was signed to the active roster of the Baltimore Ravens. He wished him luck to go someplace where they respect his talent. What do you make of Trent Brown? Like, is he, I know I'm probably not supposed to say this, but like, is he on the reservation, off the reservation? Is he all in Patriot? Does he hate his team and his teammates and his decision maker? Like, he thinks he's the best. He's late to meetings. He's not late to meetings. He's pooping. Like, what do you make of Trent Brown?
I think that he is just that, a wild card. Like off the reservation might be strong, but I think I don't think he's going to be back next year. I don't think he really wants to be here and buys into the whole Patriot thing. I think that the only person that can get him to do that was and will forever be Dante Scarnecchia. but I also think he's a pretty damn good football player when, when push comes to shove. And I think even an unmotivated, like the unmotivated Trent Brown 3 years ago was a bad football player. I think the unmotivated Trent Brown now is actually still a pretty good football player. Like I still think that, like, I think he's gotten better over the course of, the last 3, 4, 5 years. And so I think that, yeah, it's probably gotta kill Bill Belichick for him to have to deal with a Trent Brown strolling in late and saying, "No, I was taking a shit, coach." Like, what do you mean? Or because again, can you really punish a guy for that? Again, Trent's not wrong in saying if I gotta go, I gotta go. But if that's your excuse every time, anyway,
Right.
we're not going to talk about Trent Brown's bowel movements. We're going to talk about the Instagram posts. And I don't know if he was actually slighting his teammates or even his coaches. I just think that might just be the way Trent was talking. And in that everyone was kind of saying, go get him. Like everybody was behind Malik Cunningham the other day saying, like, we want you to go succeed. And they clearly have a respect for him. I think Trent saying, go get it where you're respected. It might have been taken a little bit too far out of context. And I think that he was probably just saying, no, you're a pretty damn good football player. We didn't use you right here, and go show everybody else. But Trent Brown as a whole, I don't think he's going to be back next year. I think somebody will pay him, and whether he's good or not remains to be seen. But I think it's got to be frustrating for Bill Belichick to have to deal with it because, again, he is a pretty good football player.
He is. And I would have cut him in the summer.
Correct.
Because I didn't think he fit with this team and what they were trying to build. And if you're asking Trent Brown to set a culture, I think you're in trouble.
Yep.
If you just kind of put him on a good team and ask him to fall in line with the culture, I think you have a shot.
Yep.
Although that's not always worked either. He's an interesting guy. There's a lot of layers to Trent Brown,
Right.
but you're right. When he's engaged, he is an asset to an offense. He can do certain things that not many people. He's a planet player, as Parcells would say. There's only so many Trent Browns, few and far between. So I do think he either he's dumb and he didn't realize how it would be taken, or he knew how it would be taken and he didn't give a bleep.
Right, and he doesn't care. Right,
6'8", 380, and he's the best offensive player. At least he voices that, and so.
And I'm not going to be back next year, so who really cares?
Oh, I care.
Right,
but I got my money. I bamboozled them into a little uptick in money. Like,
yep.
So I actually think it was the latter. I think he likes to push buttons. I think Trent Brown is sneaky smart. I think he knows what the F is going on around him. Yep. I think he's a really intelligent dude who, with his little smirks and his facial expressions, sometimes says stuff. But I think there's a lot going on in that head, and I think he always knows what he wants to do.
I agree with that, 100%.
It's not always mature and professional and right, but he always knows what the F he's doing.
Correct.
Okay, so Cadlick's crucial clashes. Number one, Patriots offensive line has to be the good line, not the bad line.
Yep.
That includes Onwenu and Brown. Also includes David Andrews, who I thought sneaky stunk 2 weeks ago in the game against the Chargers, Khalil Mack and company. I thought he was a little better this week. I think a lot of it starts with him. If you get to the point where he's having problems, I think you're having a really bad day as a line. And I like David Andrews. I think he's the ultimate professional. I wish him success down the final 4 games. Who knows if he's back next year, like how this all plays out. So I think that offensive line, that matchup with Chris Jones, who might be talking about Trent Brown, Chris Jones is up there on planet players in terms of size, speed, like ability, athleticism. I mean, he's probably your pie in the sky upside for Christian Barmore. Like if you could dream of what Barmore could absolutely be, it's probably
I think he's probably behind Mahomes, the second best player in this game this weekend.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Maybe Kelsey, but like Chris Jones is a beast.
I would put Chris Jones, and now that's a debate we could have for another day, because I think sometimes we get caught up in Kelsey. Like at least I do. I don't know what Kelsey does physically that's remarkable, but
he's just a very smart player.
He really is. Yeah. And, I know I saw Mayo talk about he does as good a job as he's ever seen in zone coverages, finding the spot, which isn't, it's hard to quantify. It's not he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's this, he's this. Just like, yeah. But I agree with it, because every time I watch a game, not a Patriots game, but a Chiefs game, you're like, how come the other team doesn't cover him? Kelsey's got like 11 catches on 12 targets in the third quarter. You'd think they'd try to stop that guy from killing him, but keep killing him. So, but yeah, they're part of it. So Cadlick's crucial clashes, number 2, Patriots, Chiefs, 1:00, Gillette Stadium Sunday.
We'll get to Mahomes and Kelsey a little bit in number 3. We're gonna stick with the Patriots offense in number 2, and it's a little bit of an overlap with number 1, but it's more of the mental side that I'm going with here. And so I'm going with Bailey Zappe versus Steve Spagnuolo.
Ooh.
So Spagnuolo's defense, very aggressive, blitz heavy, pressure the quarterback, different looks, inside, outside, blitz, stunts, whatever you want to call it. Get after the quarterback and make him try and make him look stupid. Bailey Zappe last week plays well against the Steelers. I'm not exactly sure, the amount of times the Steelers tried to pressure Zappe and his success rate on the blitz. I wasn't able to dig into that too much, but you mentioned David Andrews in this offensive line and Bailey Zappe, and Zappe mentioned it yesterday. He was asked about how he's going to, handle this approach to Spagnuolo's defense. And he basically said, watching a lot of film and working with David Andrews and understanding where they're coming from, how we protect this, that, and the other thing. And so, like, on one hand, the physicality of the trenches against this front and their blitz is something I'm looking at in number 1. But I mean, number 2, it's Zappe and how he handles it, because it's only his 3rd start this season. It's only his 5th start in his career. They're going to try and make him look stupid. And, how does he handle that is kind of what I'm watching. Like, will he fluster under pressure? Does he understand how to, diagnose where it's coming from? Is he going to be fooled when they, pretend to bring 2 and drop everyone back, or vice versa? Like, is he going to panic, or is he going to panic, frankly, like Mac Jones did earlier this season? And at times he was good against the blitz, but sometimes he was a disaster. And so how does Zappe handle the all-out pressure of Steve Spagnuolo's defense with his offensive linemen is number 2 that I'm looking at here. Because I think, and again, we could talk about, Kelsey and Mahomes and that offense all day, but like, realistically, I think the way the Patriots win this game is on the offensive side of the football. They need to be able to, beat and go after that Chiefs defense. So that's why these are 2 of my 3 clashes, is Patriots offense versus Chiefs defense.
Yeah, because I think, as well as I think the Patriots defense has played and is playing and has a shot in this game, and they do turn the ball over, like, you can, like, they're the Chiefs. They're going to get to 20 points. They're going to find a way to get to 20 points. So you're going to need to score in the 20s to win this football game. So unless you get a couple pick sixes, which I think is unlikely,
right,
you're going to need to get something from Zappe. And, we talked about it a little bit. Like, you scored 21 points last week. That's great. But the offense kind of petered out. You probably could have and should have lost that football game, in my mind. Like, there were 2 critical plays. If Ezekiel Elliott doesn't make the tackle on the would-be pick 6, and the officials call offsides on Jelani Tavai, like Jelani Tavai thought he was offsides rather than a false start on the center,
right,
you probably lose that football game. So it wasn't all roses last week for the Patriots offense. We were just so beaten down by no points, no touchdowns, that it was like so exciting that they actually got in the end zone and that whole thing. But Zappe's going to do it again now. And we've seen good and bad Bailey Zappe for the last year plus. And, those of us on the practice field know that there are warts to his game, that, even though he's now 3-1 as an NFL starter, and there's like plays and excitement. I love the energy and confidence and everything that he brings. But I also think there's a chance that you really see a guy who fails to measure up to the moment, to the matchup with Mahomes, the matchup with Spagnuolo, and everything that goes into it.
So I want to build off what you just said with the confidence and what Zappe has, and even though he has warts, because and this was certainly on purpose, but I wrote a column for weei.com on Tuesday, and the title and the way I went into it was, the Patriots have something in Bailey Zappe.
Yep,
and
well
people lost their minds. And again, that was the point.
You poked the bear. You wanted the reaction.
Yeah, because everyone said, "What are you talking about? He stinks and he's not their starter." And if you did click the story and read, the way I wrote it was, there's something there. Does he deserve to be on the team next year? No. Does he even deserve to start the next 4 games? I don't know. He could peter out. We haven't seen much from him, but the confidence, the way the players gravitate towards him, the way that they played better football all around him, the way that, we talk about the Tom Curran report, the way that if they do win these next 4 games and Bailey Zappe's involved in that and they save their head coach's job, like that's something. There is something there with him. And I don't know what it is. It's not high-end NFL starter, but there's something there.
Well, I'll tell you what I think it is, and I liked that column. I loved how you
Thank you.
poked the masses a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit, and I think it was a counter column or part of a series of columns. I think it was the response to a column I wrote a couple of weeks ago when I said the Patriots will start a quarterback. They don't have a
Yeah.
starting quarterback right now. Right now, today, for this game and this Sunday, I believe they have a starting quarterback. I believe
Yep.
everybody in the building knows that Bailey Zappe is the starting quarterback. And that doesn't mean next year. That doesn't even really mean next week. But there were weeks there, lots of weeks where I don't think there was a unity or unification within the building at Gillette as to who the starting quarterback was that
Right.
week. They didn't have one. Now you've at least entered the world of Tommy DeVito or whoever you want to say it is. You know who doesn't have a starting quarterback right now? The Steelers, the team you just beat,
Right.
because no one is on the same page there as to who should be starting and whether Trubisky's good. The crowd clearly wanted Rudolph with
Yeah.
their cute little Rudolph signs and all of that. So I think you phrased it perfectly. They have something, and for right now, the something is a starting quarterback. That
Exactly.
offensive line knows Bailey Zappi is going to be back there. The
Right.
receivers know, hey, that young guy who's not always that accurate and is a little risky but brings a lot of energy, he's my quarterback for this week. That's
Right.
my guy for this week. And I personally think that matters. Like, I
Oh,
think that
100%.
like everybody's all in on that. You have to be. It's the
Yep.
quarterback. You have to at least trick yourself into believing that he's the guy for that game. Like he is the man to do what we need to do to try to win this game. So I think you nailed the hell out of that column. And I think it's accurate. It doesn't mean because Rich Keefe, I said they have a starting quarterback, and he's like, oh, for the next 4 games. I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't say
Yeah,
that. I meant
exactly.
this game.
Right.
We'll deal with next week. Next week. We'll deal with the
Right.
week after that, the week
Yeah.
after that. But basically, in a world where the AFC and NFC offensive players of the week were the quarterbacks of the New York football teams,
Yep.
but not the quarterbacks we expected to be of the New York football teams in Tommy DeVito and Zach Wilson. Like you've entered that fun little conversation where who knows if everything breaks right, maybe Bailey Zappi could be the offensive player of the week this
Right.
week and be like,
Exactly.
and for now, that's good enough. That's all you
That's
could
something.
really ask for. Right.
Right.
That it, as you said so aptly, that's something.
Exactly.
Okay. So I agree with you, Bailey Zappi. I don't know how confident I feel. Like,
Right.
what do you think's more likely? Bailey Zappi throws 3 touchdowns again or 3 picks?
3 picks. I mean, I just look at again. I look and I just talked about him for 2 straight clashes, but this the Chiefs defense is awesome. Like I really think they're good, and we've only seen one good half from Zappe this year, and it was a damn good half. But
Yep.
ultimately, yeah, more likely 3 picks than 3 touchdowns for sure.
Okay. And I think that's fair because he's a backup quarterback. He's mediocre, whatever. Law of averages. He
Yep.
threw 3 touchdowns the first half last week.
Right.
Whatever. Okay. Cadlick's Crucial Clash is number 3 for this scintillating matchup that should have been on Monday Night Football, was on Monday Night Football, but now will be on Sunday afternoon football. And I
Yep.
thank everyone for that because I'd rather do a post-game show at 4 than 11.
100%. I don't have to stay up late on a Monday night. That's for sure. So talking about quarterbacks, we're going to talk about the best player in the game, Patrick Mahomes, best player in football. Not just this game, the entire game of football. The guy's a stud. We talked about it earlier. We don't have to continue to touch on it too much, but like Bill Belichick said it best, it all starts and ends with the quarterback for the Chiefs, and it's very true because I mean, he's not playing the perennial MVP caliber football he has been. He's lost Tyreek Hill. He's lost, not that he's lost much more, but he lost Juju, which was something last year. Juju was something for them. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Kadarius Toney have been 2-0 burgers for them. Their highest, or their, what's the word I'm looking for? The receiver with the most receiving yards this season is a rookie in Rashee Rice. He also leads them in touchdowns, which is kind of fascinating. He's having a pretty good year, but that's sort of what Mahomes is relying on right now. So if you can kind of take advantage of that and shut down Kelsey, which is hard to do. You mentioned he's not overbearing in the athletic department, if you will. But I mean, he's a very smart football player.
Yep.
He's outstanding at finding the holes in zone coverage, and he runs crisp and doesn't take too many pitter patter steps in his routes, and he's able to get open against man coverage because of that. He understands leverage. He understands zone coverage. He understands man coverage. He's a very, very cerebral football player. Him and Mahomes are the best connection, arguably, in football right now, in my opinion. On the other side of that, the person that's going to have to, and this is me tying the storylines in a little bit with the head coach again, but the guy that's going to have to be in charge of sort of taking down Patrick Mahomes this week is Gerard Mayo, who is, in theory, auditioning ish for a head coaching role as soon as next season in New England. And Dan Graziano from ESPN wrote about this yesterday. The most likely candidate continues to be Gerard Mayo. Even Robert Kraft might have some cold feet there. He's going to want to, according to Graziano, he said that Kraft might want to hear a pitch on, what the solution is on offense. But Gerard Mayo's the apparent heir apparent for this team right now. And so how does he handle Pat Mahomes? If he goes out there and has a kick-ass showing against the best player in football, a guy that you're going to see every other year in the Chiefs, then maybe that helps his cause in the future, with Kraft to say, hey, look, we just took down Mahomes. I have the plans to take down Patrick Mahomes. You should hire me. We'll figure out the offense later. We'll draft Drake May, whatever. So I just think that a game where, you've played your Tommy DeVitos and you've played your Sam Howells, and you haven't played well, but it's not the biggest stage you'd want on Monday Night Football. But I mean, the Crafts are going to be there. These rumors on Bill and Mayo are kind of starting to surface. So if Mayo goes out and kicks ass against Patrick Mahomes, then that's going to help his cause moving forward. But it's not easy because, again, best player in football is Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely. And best player who's pissed off and embarrassed and whatever he's feeling emotionally coming off of last week with something to prove and still fighting for the hope of maybe getting back into that number one seed and continuing his streak of not playing road playoff games and all that. I'm going to throw, and I agree with you, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, if you can frustrate him, if you can pick him off, if you can make him punt, those are all tasks for Gerard Mayo and this defense, which has been very good. But Mitchell Trubisky's not on the other side of the field this week. You have Patrick Mahomes on the other side. The one thing I will say, one consistent for the most part with this defense, whether it's last week against Mitchell Trubisky, crappy quarterback, or whether it's week one, Jalen Hurts, great quarterback, or theoretically great, who may be scuffling a little bit now, Jabril Peppers. And I'm going to continue to bring him up because he has been a tone setter. Even, I would argue, post-game last week, Mahomes was bitching, whining, crying this, and you had Jabril Peppers talking about he was sick of the flack that his head coach was getting and supporting his head coach. Jabril Peppers has been the perfect football player for this defense this year, on and off the field. Everything he said,
he has.
He lit up Hurts for that initial turn. I think their first turnover of the season when they couldn't get turnovers for a while there. It was just him. Last week, he has the interception. So Jabril Peppers, to me, has just become this guy, not that he's Ed Reed, but remember when Brady used to be find Ed Reed on every snap he wrote on his wristband. If I'm an opponent, my head's on a swivel to know where the hell Jabril Peppers is, because he's just been that impactful. He's been the most impactful player consistently from week one to week now for this defense. And I think Mahomes needs to be aware of that. Don't be scrambling down the sideline and thinking Peppers won't hit you, because he'll hit you. And
he did it last week. He baited Trubisky into a key interception last week.
Absolutely. So as part of that Mayo defensive plan, I would be well aware where Jabril Peppers is, both in terms of turnovers, picking off passes, hitting my receivers, putting my receivers in bad positions where they could get hospital balls. Or, like I said, if I'm Mahomes and I'm scrambling and I'm 1 foot from the sideline, I'd get the hell out, because Peppers might be on his way. And Peppers is trying to do some damage. He always is. It's nothing personal to you. It's the way he plays the game, and it's the way I love the game to be played.
He might be he might have been the best player in all of football in 1965.
Oh my God, yeah. When you could not in a league where they're well, I got to get rid of this drop hip tackle thing.
Yeah,
get rid of that, and we can't do this, and we can't do that.
Did you see they called the kickoff a ceremonial play yesterday? That's done.
You know where else kickoffs don't exist? Flag football, because we're going to flag football. I firmly believe it. People think I'm being a hardo. I'm telling you, before my son is dead, he will be watching flag football as the primary football that is played in the United States of America. I firmly believe it. We're going down that road, but that's a different rant for a different
Yeah.
day. So yes, I agree.
We're on to Kansas City.
Yep. And Gerard Mayo can put a feather in his cap if he has a late season. Now, it's a weird world because I never know when Mayo gets credit or doesn't. Like, is Bill Belichick going to get credit? Is Steve Belichick going to get credit?
Yeah,
Is Gerard Mayo going to get credit? But, I think he phrased it. Was that this week or last where he phrased, I would tell everyone just look at the body of work.
Yes.
The body of work.
Yeah, he said, don't look at my title. I loved that from him.
And
he's good. Like he knows what he's another guy that's smart and he keeps quiet, but he gets
and
it.
he sneaky says stuff without saying too much.
Yes.
If you really listen to tone and words and how he presents it, and this would add to his body of work. If you upset the Chiefs, deal with Patrick Mahomes, find a way to stop Travis Kelce, that's a feather in his cap coming down the stretch of this season where maybe he is trying to either finalize the Patriots job or who knows, maybe he's out with Bill Belichick and he needs to find out where his next job is going to be and where he's going to land on his feet. So I like it. Okay, Cadlick's crucial clashes. We have the three: Patriots offensive line versus Chris Jones, Patriots quarterback Bailey Zappe versus Spagnuolo, and that good Chiefs defense. And then Patrick Mahomes, who's ticked off and wants to prove something against Gerard Mayo and his defense that has fought the good fight all year long. So put it all together, blend it all up real nice. And what do we have for a Cadlick's Crucial Clashes prediction for Sunday, Patriots-Chiefs? Which, by the way, the Chiefs are, I think, a 9.5-point favorite last I looked at Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
So,
yep. It is a lot. I don't think the Chiefs are going to come out and be the world beaters that they have been in the past. Like, I think they're going to continue to sort of struggle. And I think if the Patriots play their cards right, they could win this game. Will they win this game? No. I know. I'm sorry.
You were back.
I think the Chiefs.
I felt like you were back there for a second.
No, I was back for like the first half of last week's game. And then when they didn't score a point in the second half, I was like, oh, this is still the 2023 Patriots. I think Zappe will continue to look okay. But at the end of the day, final score prediction is 24-13 Chiefs. Chiefs get to 24. Patriots get one touchdown, a couple field goals, maybe miss an extra point. But at the end of the day, I think that the Chiefs do what they have to do to win in Foxborough. They're still the better football team. And they're fighting for more than the Patriots, even though the Pats are coming off a win and, everyone's telling them blah, blah, blah. Like the Chiefs are fighting for tangible playoff seeding. The Patriots are out of the playoffs. So with all that wrapped up in a bow, I'm taking the Chiefs 24-13.
Okay. And I would simplify it. I'll urge everyone to go over to the Six Rings area where I will be with Fitzy and Jonas Gray, and we'll be predicting this game, talking about this game.
You need to ask him about that 200-yard 4-touchdown game against the Colts.
Yeah, what else do I have to ask him about?
That's fair.
Let's see. You rushed for 200 yards. You were on Sports Illustrated. You were well on your way, and then you over.
Well, I want to find out for me the true reason why he got cut, because I feel was he late?
Yeah,
is that accurate?
I'm pretty sure he overslept. I've heard various stories, but I'm pretty sure he just missed his alarm, overslept, was late, entered the doghouse, never got out of the doghouse. And oh, by the way, like, I don't remember what I thought of Jonas Gray post 200 yards. Like, I don't know that he was that good. He just had one of those. He is the reason why I always say go to a game. Like, if you have tickets, whatever, you think the Patriots stink, you don't know what you're going to see, it's going to rain, whatever, you might see history. You might see a guy.
I was at the Jonas Gray game. You could say that, right?
Right. And so Jonas Gray is a reason to go to sports at all times, regardless of what you think is going to happen in the game, because you never know. And you do never know. We have Mike Cadlick, who teased me for a minute there. I thought he was going to pick the Patriots to bounce back, win 2 in a row, create some excitement here. No, he's got the Chiefs winning.
We're still playing for the pick. We're rooting for the pick here.
Root for the pick. He's got the Chiefs covering. We still want number 2 overall because the players are starting to declare for the draft. We have Drake May this week. So Drake May is in the mix. We'll see about Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. And the other guys, Jaden Daniels, may be in the mix. A lot of people now putting him in that top 5 or 6 pick area. So 4 games to go. Patriots, Chiefs, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Don't bet against them, even though they're sulking and stumbling along here a little bit. And if you're a Patriots fan, just root against Mahomes and Reid, because you don't want them to challenge Belichick and Brady in the dynasty, and you don't want that. You want them to be torn apart and angry and upset. Whatever.
This really should be a Monday Night Football game.
It should be a Monday Night Football game. Lots of storylines, and maybe, of course, Taylor Swift will be in the house because she has a great working relationship with the Kraft Sports Group and, performing, I think 13, 14 years in a row, whatever it is, shows at Gillette Stadium. So 1 o'clock Sunday, Foxborough. Patriots, it's a football game at the very least, and we're kind of running out of these for this year. There's only 4 to go. So enjoy it for what it is, even if it's Bill Belichick's 4th to last football game coaching the Patriots. He's Mike Cadlick. I'm Andy Hart. 6 Rings out.
Thanks for listening.